E.S. Mbadi has outlined an ambitious plan aimed at revitalizing the economy. Sandra, because we're simply reviewing the papers, it's this kind of communication where the Star chooses to go with what is working, that we are now doing better. And the Standard goes with a plan towards a better place. Mm-hmm. And one wonders, are we in the same country? The Standard talks about in the face of a sluggish economy, meaning that many Kenyans do not feel that things are good. Now, when the Star decides to list things that they say are working, and the CS is talking about a better plan towards a better place, that kind of communication could throw people off balance a bit. Many people would reject the authenticity of this headline, don't you think?
You know, the problem that is beating this government to the point where Kenyans will claim, and I very carefully use the word claim, that they cannot feel the results of the government. I think it's more of the political environment that has prevailed since 2022 when the elections were concluded. We saw our standard post-election violence or protests. Before we could even recover from that, we then had the Gen Z protests. We had a very brief period of calmness, serenity in the country, and then we had the Gen Z protests. Before we could even recover from the Gen Z protests, we had the impeachment saga. What happens with all this is that we've got investors who will, especially our foreign investors, they will never feel comfortable in an environment that has such kind of upheavals. And so you find that post-2022, where we expected a lot of companies to re-expand their operations. Remember, there are a lot of companies that had scaled down because of the COVID, and then others retained that scale down in fear of the elections, because remember the 2022 election had been projected to be extremely fierce. So you have that a lot of these companies have not re-expanded their operations to where they were at before COVID, and even to grow bigger. Now, when you have expanded investments, that means more jobs for people, and of course the auxiliary biasharas that grow around those organizations. Then of course you have the direct foreign investors. They're not going to come in until they are assured that the country is politically stable, and therefore they can come in and actually establish a business that will have a profit. Now, what that means is that we've got a little bit more people out there who are jobless, and because they're jobless, they will not really appreciate when unga falls from 250 to 89 to 90 to 100. Because at the end of the day, he still has to struggle even to get that 100 bob to buy that cheaper unga. So I think the challenge really is not so much to government as much as to other political players. It's good to see, and I think this is why people should appreciate why the broad-based government was brought in, and those who did not really probably appreciate the handshake then, though the broad-based and the handshake are kind of different, will understand why the president decided, I'm not going to do my term fighting with the opposition, and the opposition leader for that matter, who has proven to be a force to be reckoned with, because we need tranquility so that we can have investors, so that current investors can also expand, people can get jobs, there's more shilling in the pocket, and then people will be able to now appreciate these efforts by government. So our political leaders, rather than going out there and doing press conferences and always telling us, oh, you know, this government hasn't done that, this government hasn't done that, they also have a role to play in terms of making sure they create an environment in this nation that attracts investors.
Okay. Benji, it would appear that the broad-based agreement is simply a way to make this conversation a bit more palatable for Kenyans. That many people do not feel the benefits highlighted on the front page of the Star, but because there's a broad-based arrangement